Good evening and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for. Whether we realize it or not, there is an all-out war of words between the official opposition and the Minnis administration. Officials from the former government are being metaphorically draped up by police for various forms of malfeasance, and some are even being marched to court in handcuffs. The opposition, through the voice of its leader, has taken grave offense to what it calls the handling of these former government officials. The opposition leader wants to meet with the Prime Minister, who says the law should take its course, and he sees no reason to meet with the now or with the former Deputy Prime Minister. The opposition leader says that the PLP is going to pay the FNM back for seemingly embarrassing its former government officials. But isn't this a police investigation with nothing really to do with the FNM? Well, at least that is what the Minister of National Security is saying. Tonight, we're going to hear from the opposition on this to see what sense we can make of it all. Our topic tonight is the voice of the opposition. However, we do have a former FNM cabinet minister with us just to keep the balance. Our guest tonight, Jo Beth Davis, a PLP senator and legal counsel to a petroleum company, Fenton Nemore, former FNM cabinet minister, and Cassius Stewart, who led his own political party before becoming a member of the FNM. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more On the Record right after this.
On the Record is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive. No one does summer like we do. It's just a way of life. Light it up.
Time is now. We own summer. We are alive.
What are you doing?
Calling the bank to order more checks.
Go to epbahamas.com and order your checks from Executive Printers.
Executive Printers. We're the authority in business and personal check printing in the Bahamas. Come in and see one of our specialists or visit us online at epbahamas.com to design and order your checks today.
Welcome back to On the Record. Voice of the Opposition is our topic for discussion tonight. My guest, rightfully so, attorney and PLP Senator Jo Beth Davis, Fenton Nemo, who served as a Minister of Environment in the FNM's Ingram administration, and Cassius Stewart, who at one time was a leader of his own political party, the Bahamas Democratic Movement, before joining the FNM. Gentlemen, lady, welcome to the show. Jo Beth, welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to have you back. And gentlemen, welcome to On the Record for the first time.
Thanks. Pleasure.
We have a lot to talk about tonight. We have been, as is customary, monitoring what has been happening in the media, and certainly we form our topics around that. A lot going on with now former members of the government attached to the opposition, but certainly the government pushing ahead with its agenda. I want to begin, though, with the most recent turn of events. The Prime Minister, Dr. Hubert Minnis, would have delivered a national address last night, his first address since taking office. I want to sort of get your impressions of that overall address and what you thought he would have, what you thought was good about it and what you thought may have been lacking. Jo Beth, I'm going to start with you, as you certainly are officially representing the opposition on this panel tonight.
Well, first of all, I haven't seen anything that obviously our leader would be working on. So when I speak, I'm speaking based on my impressions of what I got from the national address. I thought, well, before I go to what I thought, I spoke to someone that was a part of the FNM administration, and I said to them, well, I know the national address is up and coming, and I hope that it's not a speech from the throne. I hope that it actually speaks to now. They had some time to sit down and review certain ministries, and they're actually going to tell us certain plans that they will begin to roll out as it pertains to various ministries. In fact, it actually was another speech from the throne. The Prime Minister had the perfect opportunity to say, well, here is 3 of our topmost plans that we will focus on in the country, because obviously we made a few promises, but we can't do everything at once. And so this is where we're going to start from. Instead, he continued to go down a road of blaming the PLP for things that they did. He said he's going to have some salary cuts. He spoke nothing about some of the promises that he would have made. He had the opportunity, he could speak to climate change initiatives that he would probably implement. He could have spoken to energy conservation. I attended recently a UN summit that spoke to food security and the need for countries now to look to ways to implement and enforce some type of nutritional health and diet plan amongst the persons that live in the community. So if you live in the Bahamas, you should eat the way that the Bahamian diet should be, you know, so you could learn nutritious diets. And so I thought that we need to redirect our conversation and become more advanced in the way we speak to the Bahamian people and how we are growing the economy. If we continue to sit back and just play the game of politics, then how do we advance? How do we move with the times? And so I wasn't very impressed with what I heard, and I thought he had the opportunity to make a difference, and he didn't do it.
We're looking for a conversation or a speech at a higher level, I think.
A higher level.
Okay, I'm going to now, Fenton Nemo.
Well, first of all, I respectfully disagree with my colleague to my left, which I'm sure she would have expected. But,
of course. Of course.
But the reality is that this was the first speech by the Prime Minister, and he addressed some issues which we felt were major concerns for the Bahamian people. For instance, he spoke about Bahama and some of the challenges there and his visits there and his assessments, which the Bahamian people want to hear more about. And so this was the beginning of that process. He also spoke about Grand Bahama. And unfortunately, many of us in New Providence and many in the Bahamas do not or may not have a full appreciation for the economic position that Grand Bahamians now face. Grand Bahama is in a very poor economic position. I grew up there.
Has been for a while.
And the Prime Minister addressed it, the hotel there, and the challenges with that hotel, and where we ought to go. So that was important, and Grand Bahamians needed to know that the Prime Minister is aware of their challenges and is addressing it. And so he addressed those issues. He also addressed other issues in regards to carrying out of our laws and the importance of us being a law-abiding country, and the fact that the law, that us politicians are not above the law. And it must be understood that that is the case, and it also must be shown. And we must conduct ourselves in that manner. So the Prime Minister did address a number of things. And remember, he only had a limited amount of time to do so. And I think he did a good job of getting a number of points across that the Bahamian people wanted to hear. And I'm sure that he will elaborate on many of those points coming in.
Satisfied with what he would have brought. Cassius, I want to bring you in now on this discussion. You would have sat in opposition, opposed, joined the FNM at one point now, sort of out of politics. But your impression, just from your political background, was that address last evening adequate enough, given the timing?
Well, I want to stand in the balance between the two of them. And I think what she is trying to say is that the country has been longing for a long-term objective, a long-term plan for the country. When I initially got into politics, we outlined and we crafted what we call a 40-year plan.
I remember it very clearly.
And I think what the nation really wants is to find out how the leader is going to take us from this economic crisis, this crime crisis, this whatever crisis we're in, into a brighter future. But also decide what Fenton is saying is that I think what the leader, the Prime Minister, has been saying is that he is trying to address some immediate problems. So to stand in the middle of both of them, one of the issues he's been talking about is the law. For many, many years, we have had where politicians have been breaching the law, violating the law. And, the thing about the law is that if one man breaks the law, then the entire law becomes invalid. So law should be universal. Everybody should be governed by the same rule of law. And that is commendable. It needs to happen. But it also needs to be done in a way where the scale of justice is balanced. It's not for one side, it's for both sides. And so I believe that, I think what the Prime Minister is trying to do, and I think he perhaps has to more evolve into his position, is that he has to crystallize where he wants the Bahamas to go. And I'm not sure he has a grasp of that as yet.
Well, he said he did.
Well, one of the things, the reason we are really here tonight is to begin that, or to flesh out that discussion more, particularly on what's happening now with former members of the government. You have already charges levied against Ken Dorset and a Frank Smith, and drawing a lot of debate responses from the PLP, which we're going to get into a little later. But I'm just going to throw this question out there. Is this, in your opinion, what the people want to see? Or is this just an exercise primarily in getting back at?
Well, you have both coins playing. You have a large percentage of the population. They've tasted blood and they love it. It's like beheading of the king in France. Oh, it feels good. But we have to be very cautious with that, because you don't want to go after former members of parliament just because they're former members of parliament, finding accusation after accusation, because in a short while you yourself may be in the opposition and that same thing can come after you. But for me, I don't think no Bahamian, no average citizen loves corruption. We want our country to be corruption-free. We want our politicians to be working equitable on their behalf. And so when you see we implementing laws like this, which we should have been done from the 1980s. If we had done this from the 1980s, we would have had a cleaner country. We would have been in a better financial position, because we waste a lot of money. But
I want to jump before we get to the break. Fenton, you, as a former minister, you would have been in government when your party lost, went into private life. When you see this happening now, I'm sure there must be some bells and whistles going off in your head saying, asking sort of, is this the right way to go? Should this happen? Should it be done differently?
Well, there was some concerns, and I will state what some of those were. But I think it is something that the Bahamian people, many of them wanted to see, that because they felt that many of us politicians, felt that we were above the law, and that some of us needed a lesson. And for many politicians going forward, the public wanted them to know that if they do wrong, that there are consequences. So that was necessary. But what concerns me about this situation is that we are suggesting that this may be politically led, when in fact that this is the responsibility of the police all along. This is a this is a judicial responsibility, and it should not be politically led. And so it is important that we understand that politicians should not be involved in this process. That's why I took great offense to Mr. Davis writing a letter.
Yeah, I want you to stick a pin in that because we've got to go to a break. But I do want to flesh this out a little more because it does raise a lot of questions on both sides. We are in the midst of our discussion, hearing now the voice of the opposition in relation to everything that is happening right now. We are at the point of our next break in the show. On the Record will continue right after this.
AID features Napa Auto Parts which meet or exceed OE specifications. Parts for Asian vehicles are available at great prices. Filters from $2, brakes from $22, tie rod ends from $21, head gaskets from $10, and fuel pumps from $32. AID is also your destination for the best selection of automotive accessories. Hubcap sets from $22.45, steering wheel covers from $4.50, car mat sets from $8.45, and seat covers from $34.44. Wipers, wash and wax products, motor oils, and automotive chemicals for every vehicle. Angle grinders from $44.53, pressure washers from $162. For the month of July, all radiators and Napa water pumps are 15% off at all AID locations. AID is now open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. AID, Blue Hill Road and Wolf Road have all you really need and more.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Get faster internet speeds for free when you get TV, internet, and phone. Ask for Trio from Rev.
Rev, join the revolution.
Welcome back to more On the Record. Tonight we're listening to the voice of the opposition. What is being said in light of all that is happening? Our guests tonight, Jo Beth Davis, Fenton Nemore, Cassius Stewart. I wish the public would have heard that discourse we had during the break, but we're going to come back to that for sure. We were really talking about what was happening in relation to the two former PLP ministers who had been charged before the courts, and really on the surface what that means certainly to the political stage, but overall. Jo Beth, I'm going to go to you. We've heard statements, I'm going to go to them in depth more, from the leader of your party about what this means, the optics of it all. But really from a party perspective, what has been the reaction?
Well, from me personally, my reaction was I just want to ensure that there's no miscarriage of justice coming out of this, that there are actually being persons making complaints, because that's how it should be done. There should be a complaint forthcoming from persons out of the community, out of society, to the Attorney General to investigate certain matters, and then the police are instructed to carry out such investigations, and those persons are then called in, and we have the charges. If it will stick, then you put the documents together and you send it to the court. That's how the structure should be done. It shouldn't be that persons are being called in to query some things, and then from that, them being called down to the police station, there's some arrests and stuff. Who are making the complaints? Are we carrying out the process properly? And that's my only concern.
Is there any evidence that the process is not being carried out properly? Is there any evidence that this is, as Fenton would have said, is this a political exercise, or is this strictly a police exercise?
Well, my question would be then is, if they don't want the appearance of there being some political involvement, then why is it that they were so hurried to carry out these sort of things instead of implemented properly anti-corruption units as designed by the UN and their anti-corruption policies and protocols. There are protocols in place, there are policies that instruct state members and governments how to implement the proper anti-corruption unit, that it's independent from any type of political involvement. So why don't you go about it the correct way, because you want to be the government of transparency and accountability, go about it the correct way, implement the unit the correct way, so that there will be some type of trust in the system, and you don't lose that trust.
What she's saying, it was quite disturbing based upon what the information coming from the lawyers that Mr. Frank Smith was brought before the courts before there was an actual charge made against him. If that was the case, then that is quite disturbing. It should not have happened, and that they breached the way the protocol in which somebody should be brought before the court. So if that is the case, that is quite disturbing. It should not have happened. Now, some people saying whether there's a police or it's political, I just want to make a statement. It's all political. A political party is bringing these accusations against another political party, so it's political. Whether they're trying to disable or dismantle another political party is to be said, but what is being done should have been done a long time ago.
So then, okay, go ahead.
Can I make a very clear point? First of all, my friend here had indicated that there's a process, and I agree with her that processes ought to be carried out. She had indicated that matters should be brought to the Attorney General. In fact, the matters should be brought to the police. And this is what must be made very clear, that if anything criminal happens, the matter should be brought to the police first, who should conduct their investigation. And it is they who then put their case together and present it. That is the process. Now, let me finish. The next point is that once these matters are brought before the police, it is important that they are not influenced by politics. And we have no evidence to date that it has been influenced by politics.
And nor do we have any assurances that it's not, because the unit is not set up properly.
But it doesn't have to be, the matter is
no,
of
it
law.
Does.
Could I be allowed? I allowed you to speak.
Okay, go ahead.
Allow me to finish.
Go ahead.
It is important that the police be allowed to carry out their responsibility. It is not a unit that carries it out. It is the police, led by the commissioner of the police. And it is a matter of maintaining the law.
Fenton,
what law, what statute puts this anti-corruption unit in place?
It's not about anti-corruption. We're talking about two people being charged before the courts.
How?
I allowed you to speak. I never interrupted you. First of all, the commissioner has charges. We do not know how they were brought to the commissioner. That is something the commissioner will answer to if he chooses to. It is not for the Prime Minister to get involved in that matter, nor has that happened before and should not happen. The second issue that is very clear that we must understand is that this issue of individuals being charged should not be a matter where all of the processes as to how the evidence came before the police ought to be put to the public before the trial occurs.
A couple of things here I want to get in on. One, as is the case in any criminal matter, where the information came from and how it got will come out in court.
Yes.
Exactly. That always comes out, and then our laws are very strict about what is reported prior to a case getting to court and how it could influence that. Which speaks to that. But I do have a question though, and I am just very curious as a citizen. Why, or did this evidence come to the police prior to the election? Were they in possession of this prior to the election?
Excellent question.
And if it came after the election, that then raises another question. Those who brought it there, if they were in possession before, why was no outcry made? Or if it was made and the police didn't act, that now opens another Pandora's box.
That is a very
Jerome, to add to what you're saying, so somebody's bringing an accusation against Frank Smith, right? He violated the law. If there was a bribery case, what happened to the person who was supposed to be giving him the money? Wasn't she or he also should be brought before the courts as well too? Then another question we have, right? So if you're bringing this minister for violating and bribery, how far can you go back? Can you go back into the Can you go back into the F&M administration?
So there's no statute of limitation?
None whatsoever.
None.
Okay. But can you bring now former F&M cabinet ministers before the courts who have violated the law?
You would see now that just recently that what's his name?
Wayne Monroe.
Wayne Monroe would said that he is going. He's compiling a list of FNMs and actions that he wants to present to the police commissioner for his actions. You said there's nothing.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Will the commissioner of police act on charges brought up against former F&M administrators?
Why wouldn't he?
I mean,
he should.
Why wouldn't he?
That's the question. He have the prerogative to say yes or no,
These
right?
questions will arise because in some instances, there's still a lack of trust from one side of the divide because of how the things and the appearances, like I said before, is done. You have, for instance, some ministers and some senators with the government speaking publicly, more to come. More coming. Don't worry.
So how do they know?
Exactly. Yes. This is my question. How are you confidently saying there is definitely more to come? How, if you're not involved?
But I can explain some of these things, because I've been involved in something similar before. What I find amazing in this particular case is that when we had the BEC bribery case, these issues were never raised when the PLP were the government. They never raised it. But when individuals, myself, who was the former minister responsible for BEC, was asked by the press about those charges when they did not name who it was, my response to the public was, call the police. That was my public response. The former Prime Minister Ingram came back with the same similar response. We did not say, hey, it's a witch hunt. We said, follow the law. Now, how the evidence becomes, what is important that we must recognize is, now that the government has changed, in order to receive evidence, they must go to, or the police would need the cooperation of the current government to receive certain documentations that are within the ministries, etc.
There's information that exists within ministries.
There has to be some collaboration or some discussion with the current government to receive and for information and for the investigation to be completed. I want
to move the discussion forward a bit too. The leader of the opposition, through the press, we found out sent a letter to the Prime Minister expressing his concern and asking him to look into these matters, etc. And the Prime Minister responded and said that he would not be taking it up. He advised him to go to speak to the police about it. My question is, was it or is it appropriate, if you feel that there was a miscarriage of justice, is it appropriate for the Leader of the Opposition to say to the Prime Minister publicly via letter, I think there's something untoward here? Should that not go directly to the police or to the Office of the Attorney General if you feel that there is an issue with how this is being carried out? And the reason I ask that is, the minute the Prime Minister, or if he had said, yes, I will look into it, would it not then give the appearance of an interference on his part?
In this particular case, it should have gone directly to the police. I felt that the Leader of the Opposition should have approached the police if he had any concerns. For instance, if he had a concern that the individuals were handcuffed, that is at the discretion of the police to handcuff the individual. That is a concern he should address with the Commissioner of the Police, not the Prime Minister. He should also address the fact that his concern that they were being put into general population. And I agree with him that they should be addressed differently. Just as if a police officer were arrested, he should not be put into general population.
For safety issues.
Yes,
safety
but that should be addressed with
or even the superintendent of the prisons.
Exactly. That's where, and he should not be writing the Prime Minister. Let me tell you why. The mere fact that he wrote the Prime Minister suggests that the government in the past, currently, or may in the future, influence any future investigation. And that politicians directly influence these matters when they should be controlled.
Okay, folks, I'm just sorry. I don't want to break the stride. We are at the point that we do have to take a break. Cassius, Joe Beth, I'll let you comment on that after the break. Stay with us. We are at the halfway mark of tonight's show. We have a very controversial week. Tonight we're listening to the voice of the opposition, but we got some other folks who are commenting on us as well. Stay with us. We are back right after this.
Is now. We own summer. We are live.
Shooting last night claims the life of a young woman.
Providence being urged to evacuate as soon as possible. That story.
Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis weighs in on those reasons.
Inside the huddle, everybody, Al Marcelo.
Force officer behind bars today.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Welcome to the second part of our show, On the Record. Tonight we're looking at the voice of the opposition with 4 members in the House of Assembly. It's always been a question from the day of elections. How effective would the voice of the opposition be? Would they be heard? This week, I think, was a watershed moment in many ways, with the leader of the opposition speaking out against what he sees as this political witch hunt against former members of the Christie administration. Prime Minister saying, the letter that he sent, first of all, he would have not received it, read it in the press, thought it was inappropriate. That's where we left off in our discussion. On the surface of what the opposition leader did it appear, or was that an appropriate thing to do, to send, or even give the inference that you were sending a letter to the Prime Minister based on your concerns of what was happening with the police and in their investigations and court matters?
I think what Mr. Davis was trying to bring across was, first of all, it should have been sent to the police, the Commissioner of Police, because I think it left a bitter taste in the mouth of the nation when you see the leaders being held before the courts and so on. So I think he was trying to express that, we need to find another way of dealing with the matter. Going to the Prime Minister is a suggestion that it's a political matter. And so for him writing the letter to the Prime Minister is indicating that, hey, this is being politically driven. That should have been addressed to the Commissioner of Police, and the process in which these former members of Parliament or Cabinet Ministers are being handled should be addressed as well, too. I understand what the Prime Minister is trying to say, that nobody's above the law, but also we are under a system where everybody is innocent until proven guilty. And so you cannot just, because in the Bahamas, in a small country, when you put a handcuff on a man, he's guilty.
You're guilty until proven innocent.
You have to understand that our law states that these individuals are innocent until proven guilty by the court of law, and that's the system in which.
Joe Beth, you had
what I would say is I don't think it was the leader of opposition intent for there to be some appearance that he expects the Prime Minister to politically get involved and instruct. I don't think that was the intent. I think that there is some type of camaraderie between the two parties, and I think in that sense, he wrote the letter, and however it went or whomever it went to, he'd have to speak to why he chose the direction he took. But the content of the letter, I think, was very strong in the position that how the former ministers are being paraded and with the shackles, when you know that the Privy Council would have spoken against these shackles being put on, with them going down to the courts and there not being the dockets in place for the charges to actually be applied, and just for him to incite some type of voice coming out of the government to speak out along with him against maybe the practices of what's occurring by the police. And I would say that it had to have triggered something. First and foremost, it should have remained private. However it leaked, I do not know. But there had to have been something in that letter, because the national address touched on some of those things, which only could have just recently been inserted in the national address, because that only just happened.
I want to go back to something that Cassie said. He said that, in your opinion, having these former members paraded to the courts in the glare of the cameras and the public, etc., social media, has left a bitter taste in the mouths of people. Is that really a true assessment? Do people actually feel that way, or have they taken a different position? And then I want to talk about some comments really that were made by the opposition this week. But I want to start out with whether you honestly believe that people are sympathetic, or is that sympathy just within the party and the supporters of these individuals?
Well, you get 50-50. You have some people who are supporting the Progressive Liberal Party, saying, oh, they should, if they break the law, they should go to jail. There's some supporters of the FNM saying they should go to, I mean, across the board, I think, though, Bahamians feel that, you know, if a politician broke the law, they should go to jail. Everyone, I believe that wholeheartedly. If you violate the law, you should be punished for it. All I think what she was trying to say is that the process in which you are bringing individuals before the court, make sure that you have all your T's across and your I's dotted. Make sure that there is an actual complaint against the individual and we have actual evidence that they did violate the law. Then you could then punish them. But if you don't have, you go before the courts and you don't have no dockets, you don't have no accusation, you don't have anything, was it just a show to embarrass the individual, or what are you trying to do? Because it could be me, you, or any one of us.
Does it help, though?
Can I add to that, Jerome? First of all, the fact that the dockets were not prepared in time, that has happened before, and it shouldn't happen. Okay, whenever you have a person before,
it happens to many
it happens to many people
all the time.
It happens all the time.
On a daily basis, people are brought to court and documents aren't ready.
And if there's any positive that comes out of this, is the fact that we've highlighted some of the efficiencies that the general public has been experiencing all along.
Deficiencies.
Deficiencies and inefficiencies are being highlighted, which is good, and hopefully we will correct those issues. Now, in regards to the handcuffing issue, my personal view is, and I said this before, this is a responsibility of the police. I personally do not agree with those two individuals being handcuffed. And the reason being is because they did not and have not demonstrated that they were flight risk.
I never saying or pose any danger.
They are big men, mind you.
But where's Frank Smith going to run?
But
yes, Ken Dorset going to run too.
You know, but it's at the discretion of the police escorting them to the court. And that the police officers made that decision. I personally don't agree with it, because those individuals have given service to this country and have demonstrated that they were willing to cooperate. And I'm sure if they came to the police station, they would have gone to the courts.
Here's my argument, and I've said this before. You know, if you are a fella from over the hill who the police suspect of breaking in my house and thieving my TV and computer, but they come in to kick my door down, the police can have their knee in my back, they can throw me in the back of the police car, throw me in the jail. I may go to court and my documents not ready. Go to court, documents not ready, come back another day, and I'm still shackled and going to. So when we look at that, you probably have people out there saying, well, you know, when it's our time being accused of a crime, they don't take that hands off or cuffs off approach with us. So why should these gentlemen who are being accused be treated any differently? I'm just putting it out there as devil's advocate.
Well, I'll say this, and the reason I talked about the handcuff issues, this issue has come up before. While I was a cabinet minister, there were individuals brought before the courts without handcuffs. And there are some individuals took offense to that. They felt they should have been handcuffed. But the individuals came willingly, and they went before the court. They were not handcuffed. And so that's why I understand that position of the police. But we have to recognize at the same time that we have to carry out the law, and we must treat all individuals equally. Yeah.
Well, that is to my point.
And this issue of what has happened to these gentlemen now brings us to the point where we now have to revamp the system, improve upon it. And that is what is critical at this particular time.
So when it involves a politician now, then the spotlight comes on the whole process. When people have been screaming for years, something needs, we need reform.
Which is wrong.
We need a reform, right? We need a reform, right? But the same case when you look at murder for the Privy Council has been arguing that we have one classification for murder. We don't have first degree, second degree manslaughter, and so on. We have to categorize murder. Not all murder is the same.
Right.
And so not all criminal offense is the same. And so what we're trying to get across is that when you're looking at misdemeanors and so on, you don't treat a misdemeanor as if he's a mass murderer. You understand? And so you have to categorize it.
But depending on who you are, they will treat a misdemeanor as if you are a mass murderer. I've seen it. I know. Depending on who you are, your economic background, where you come from. That's a whole other show. I want to move forward, though. This week, we've seen a lot of comments, which is the reason we've come to this show, from the opposition. PLP Senator Fred Mitchell calls what is happening slave shaming. He says back in the days of slavery, you took one slave out and beat him badly to send a message to the others. He's likening what's happening now to that exercise during the slave period. You have the leader of the opposition coming out and saying, it's your time now, but when remember that when you dig one grave, dig two, it'll be your time soon enough. Are these kinds of discussions really healthy in a situation like this? Because as I see it, you are now creating a situation of polarization within the country.
What happened is basically it is a declaration of war on the political party.
That's exactly what I thought.
So it is a declaration of war from the FNM on the PLP. Now, whether the PLP responds in kind is to be seen. But I'm sure that it's going to get worse because you're gonna create that polarization. You're going to create that hatred, that bitterness. So the supporters of one party against the supporters of the other, and that is not where we need to be in terms of moving forward. We have to find a harmonious relationship between both organizations so we can move forward. But this same political issue here will divide the country. The FNMs will hate the PLP, and the PLPs will hate the FNM, and we will be stuck on this treadmill, and we won't go anywhere. We got to get past this, and we got to get past it very soon. Now, mind you, don't get me wrong, I am in 100% support of making sure that everybody's under the law, and everybody, whoever violates the law, are punished. But we got to know how we can get past this, because this is going to retard our growth as a nation.
Jerome, this is one of the concerns that I had. I agree with Cassius that this is potentially a very divisive event, but it is important at the same time that we understand that the law must be carried out. Like I said before, when the Fred Ramsey case with BEC, we said take it to the police. It was not a witch hunt then, but now it's different. What concerns me moving forward were the statement implying that there will be an act of potentially by the PLP that they will do the same to the FNM once they win. Now, the way politics is going in the Bahamas, every election we switching. And it concerns me that maybe when the next election comes over, they may pick me up for something I don't know about.
You better believe it.
You better believe it concerns me. And they may pick me up for something I say today.
You better believe it.
It concerns me. and that is tit for tat. And it concerns me. But what is even more concerning is the fact that we are now gotten to the point that it is potentially that the PLP may begin to address issues in the future of other laws that have been broken, that are being broken in the political process. For instance, what do politicians do before an election to constituents? They sometimes help them out give them gifts, etc.,
Yeah,
which is
sometimes.
against the law.
Yeah,
which is against the law. So
and
we're now
and
in
all
a
politicians
situation.
are involved in it. All.
Well, you sure?
All.
Yeah.
No, all can be accused.
all
can be accused. No, I wouldn't.
Well, okay, sorry. The majority.
They benefit.
Yeah.
And
Once elections
politics,
are called,
it
you
is
cannot give
almost a
constituents
part of our culture
Yeah.
that we must help constituents during an election campaign, not recognizing that it's against the law.
Yeah.
I have had individuals approach me asking for things that when I see the long list, my wife asked me on one occasion, "Not here, sweetheart," because the things that were being asked.
That's another show.
But I have to say it. But I have to
get a comment from you before we go.
But we have to address it.
Yeah, I know.
Because
agreed.
we're
It is
now in a
culture.
situation where individuals could be arrested in the future for benefits that they provide during the campaign.
I don't think, I would say when the leader put that in the letter, I do not think that was the intention that he wanted to drive out of it, that payback, tit for tat is coming out of it. I think it was just a terminology and the way he wanted to remind that
But in all honesty, that's what I got out of it.
Yeah.
When I immediately that's what I thought. Well, is this? Wow, you.
Well, let me say he did not say that when I get back, I could do this. He did not. He just used common terms in terms of if this is happening, be careful because there's no limitation. We just said that. And so there may be some instances.
I know what you're saying, but I'm sure I'll give you the last word before the break.
Public Disclosure Act, right?
Yeah.
The Public Disclosure Act says that every member of Parliament must disclose his assets, incomes, and liability, right? So if you disclose you have $100 million, right? But you didn't disclose you have an extra $50 million somewhere, and they find that $50 million reverted to the state. All your assets you did not disclose is reverted to the state. Now, you can imagine now.
We'll be out of national debt by
You can
now.
understand? You can imagine now the Pandora box that we've opened?
Yeah.
It's a Pandora box.
We could clear up the debt in a couple of days.
Because how many members of Parliament who looking at me right now have lied on their disclosure? All of them have violated the law. And everything they have not disclosed. All of your assets that you did not disclose belongs to the state. That boat you didn't disclose. That yacht you didn't disclose.
We have got to take a break. But to your point is very valid. That is very true. We will continue our discussion right after this break with Senator Jo Beth Davis, Fenton Nemore, and Cassie Stewart. Stay with us. We are now in a new political era, a new prime minister, government, and opposition. What are the new challenges, and what role will the Bahamian people play in this new era of governance? Join me, your host Jerome Sawyer, each week for On the Record as we examine the latest political news and views. That's On the Record, airing every Thursday at 8 p.m. on cable channel 212. See you then. Welcome back. This is the final segment of our show tonight. We are really taking a look at the voice of the opposition, which has risen quite loudly in the past week, or 2 weeks, I should say, given everything that has been happening. Now, one of the first members of the opposition to really come out publicly is a newcomer to politics and to the House of Assembly. Exuma's MP, Chester Cooper, a few weeks ago really said that the party ignored, the PLP in government ignored scandal and wrongdoing. That helped to lead to their defeat. This week, the leader of the opposition likened his comments to that of a child who he says will tell the truth no matter what. Categorize his comments to that of a newbie. In reading that, I thought, I don't know whether that was as helpful to the cause. A lot of people embraced what Chester Cooper said and agreed, and I would have heard that from PLPs and FNMs and those who were sort of, you know, riding the fence too when it comes to all of that. But really, Joe Beth, I'm going to start with you. You know, when you look at sort of the conflicting comments, and then you have a Loftus Roker and Philip Galanis calling for the immediate resignation of the chairman of the party, Bradley Roberts, who later dismissed the comments and said that he's not going to run again for chairman, but he's going to wait until convention to give up that position. You know, when you see all of those things going on, really, how does that bode now for the party's position fresh off of an election?
I think with all of the difference of opinions, it's clear that the party has to get a convention off the ground to bring some type of definitive positions to certain persons, and so that if there is a need for the change in chairman, that chairmanship race will happen based on our constitution at the convention. And so you would have the opportunity to make the changes, do the purging from now that many may be requesting, many would like to see. I don't particularly like to take guidance from an opposing party, you know? So I noticed that a lot of FNMs have some say in what the PLP should or should not do. I think they should focus on, right now, what is going on in their government and the fact that we're still waiting for them to govern since May 10th. That should be their focus, along with the Bahamian public. But those who have a position or some type of positive message to bring to the transitioning of the party, then that will be accepted. I agree with what Chester said. The last time I was here with you,
said that,
I told you, I totally, and if they put me in the childlike category, well, so be it. I'd rather be in the childlike category and seeing clearly than to be riding myself into some brick wall. Okay? I agree with the position. There will need to come a time when the party needs to purge. There will be some changes, but all of this will have to happen at a convention based on the Constitution.
The PLP has found itself in a situation where I coined it as the best situation they've been in since 1962. They have an opportunity now to rebrand and to present a brand new organization in the next election to the people. The first time since when Pinlan joined, 1960 something, right? That is a unique opportunity because now you can present a new leader, a new chairman, new vice deputy chairman, a whole new organization with a whole new group of players. And you can weed out all of those elements of what you call corrupt individuals, you call them. You can weed them out. The FNM has done that, you know, because this FNM party is a brand new party. It's a brand new party because all of the players are different. All of the players are new.
Save a few.
Yeah, save a few.
Yeah, save a few.
I mean, you know,
I heard Joe back clear through.
But you see, you got to understand. You know, when you have a kingdom, you cannot just get rid of all of the quote unquote old folks. You got to keep some of the people. They are advisors. They've been around. They can advise you. But this political dispensation is a brand new dispensation for us. We have a brand new FNM, and potentially, if the PLP want to learn, they can have a brand new party, and then they could bring their arguments together. So we'll have the real clash in the next election with two brand new organizations, unencumbered by any historical, what you call, representation.
Fenimo, can that happen in the PLP?
Let me say this. I disagree with Cassius when he says this is the first time since 1968, 67, 68 that the PLP had a chance to revamp. They had this chance in 1997. 1997 was one of the greatest, well, one of the largest landslide victories for any political party prior to this one. And so when they only had, I think at that time, 7 seats.
That's when the PLP retired.
Wenzel Linden retired. The PLP, and I was an integral part of this, with Bernard Nottage, who tried to reform the PLP at that particular time. And that is how the creation of the Center for Positive Change, which grew into the CDR, developed.
Just
because
back
there
up
was
historically, after Sir Linden's resignation from politics, there was a three-way race within the PLP with Mr. Christie, Mr. Galanis, and Dr. Nottage. and it came down to Nottage and Christie. Christie won and then came back the next convention. And Dr. Nottage ran again against him, and Mr. Christie won, which would have led to...
And then Dr. Nottage and his team created the Center for Positive Change, who were trying to revamp the PLP to make them a more modern organization. And that is how the CDR branch grew, because they had given up in that process. Now, so this is a second opportunity, and hopefully they'll learn. And I agree with you, though, that this is an excellent opportunity for them to reform their party and provide a better product.
My question, though, is will it happen? The PLP
at this particular time, I doubt it. I doubt it.
Why?
I doubt it because the PLP is a political institution that is made up of various political families that have to play a role in the development of the party.
Almost like the Bahamian Kennedys?
For their... No, but let me finish my point, and I'm going to give you an example. When I was a member of Parliament in 2007, I sat in that House of Assembly and I counted that there were 21 members of Parliament who sat there who had a mother or father or uncle who was a former member of Parliament.
This is my
the majority
of
dynasty.
No, but the point I was trying to make, Fenton, is that for the first time, the PLP can now, because hold on, Mr. Christie didn't win a seat, Dr. Nottage didn't win a seat, God rest his soul, right? But then when you look at it, if the PLP purges, it'll be a brand new organization, and you wouldn't have the tenants.
Okay,
so that's the point
gentlemen, lady, across the board, we agree that the party needs a purging. My question continues to be, can that purging
I do not believe it can happen.
Why not?
I do not, because there are so many forces within the Progressive Liberal Party that want to maintain the status quo. It will be very challenging for someone like a Chester Cooper to rise up, who does not have roots deep enough within the organization to bring about change.
When you ain't got no status quo, when you ain't got no status, they ain't got nothing.
I want you to get in on it. You are sitting there, you represent that new face of the party.
I think the challenges will present themselves, but the tides have shifted. And so I do not see that we will stay in whatever this status quo everyone is saying
because there is no status quo
no more. And so persons are now coming up in front who doesn't have these affiliations that what Mr. Nemore is referring to. And matter of fact, these affiliations are across the board. Did you see the board appointments? There's names that you knew you would see, and they're there. Granted, some of them may change because they're married, but we still know some of those names where they affiliate. No, I'm not getting personal. I'm not getting personal. I'm just saying it exists across the board, and what has happened in the F&M is showing that slowly that transition will begin to change. Now, they may be new names, but it may still exist that will happen. The PLP is the institution by itself, and the PLP will fix itself, and those that want to see the PLP grow and evolve will be a part of the fixing, not those F&Ms or anyone else that think they have to answer.
All they need is a good, strong, dynamic leader, and they'll be fine.
So do you see that in a Brave Davis?
No. Brave Davis represents the past. Brave can't take the party forward. Brave can't take the PLP forward. I mean, Glenys Hannah Martin, lovely woman, she can't be a part of the new dispensation. We need young, dynamic leaders from within the country.
Well, many thought that Minnis wouldn't do well, and now he's the prime minister. So there you have it.
But he also represents
your thought, and then you can see how we evolve and build ourselves.
People never saw Minnis as taking the FNM to a victory.
No, but I don't want you to get confused and to think that there's a great love affair with the country and Minnis, you know. There's no great love affair. Minnis has what you call an arranged marriage with the Bahamas. He has 5 years to make them fall in love. Whether he does that is another story. But there's no great love affair. That victory was Ingram coming on stage and whining and dining the country. We fell in love with Ingram all over again, and we give Minnis a chance. Now, Minnis now has a chance now to make the people fall in love with him between now and the next election. But he's making some critical mistakes by agitating the media, always being aggressive and abrasive. You don't do that. You gotta be able, the Bahamian people are very funny people. We'll smile in your face, but when the time comes, like how they did the PLP last time, they will vote you out. Machiavellian road says that, listen, it's better to be fair than to be loved, but never hated. That's under a monarchy. In a democracy, you better be loved. If you ain't loved, you ain't getting no votes.
Okay, folks, we are really getting to the point where we're going to wrap up. I really want to end off with a two-sided question. Really, I'm glad you brought up, you know, that love affair or that arranged marriage. I like that term that Menace has with the Bahamian people. But Fenton Nemo, I'm going to start with you. You know, over the next, let's say the next year or so, two things. What will the Menace administration need to do to continue to garner that support that they got going into the election? Being clear that people would have voted against the PLP and not necessarily for the FNM. And should the PLP really want to continue to be a viable, relevant opposition, what needs to happen? So on both sides, your opinion on what needs to happen within the next, let's say, 12 months in both parties.
I think, first of all, I'll start with the government, the Free National Movement. I think what is critical is that the Free National Movement must recognize the key issues that the Bahamian public wants to be addressed and the manner in which they are done. And it must be seen to be fairly done. It must be seen that they are not acting politically, but in the interests of the Bahamian people. That is critical. If they do not, if their actions demonstrate that they are political, then they will be doomed, just like the PLP.
It is important because there are PLPs who voted for the FNM.
Exactly.
And then from the PLP side. And
from the PLP side, we must do some of the same things that they recommended that needs to be done, which is the Progressive Liberal Party needs to bring forth a more progressive group of young men and women to lead the organization. The PLP has something that the FNM does not have, is that the PLP is seen as an institution and a major political party with a strong base. And so once they can find a leadership team that fits that mold for the future, who follows the philosophy of the PLP, then they'll be all right.
Cassie Stewart, I'm going to go to you now. Same question.
Well, I think what Dr. Menace needs to do moving forward is he has to crystallize a vision, present that to the nation. I think, you know, Bahamian people, the people want to know where we're going and how it's going to benefit us. He needs to show us how he's going to add value to each and every one of our lives. He needs to now move away from politics. Now, he's not the Prime Minister of FNMs. He's the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, which is inclusive of everybody. And he got to demonstrate that.
And from the PLP side.
Precisely. Now, the PLP needs to, they need to now move quickly to identify younger, dynamic leaders within their organization, begin to groom them and present them for leaders. Don't go with the same mantra as, oh, this one got to wait, he's too young. Listen, they took a chance on Pinland, it was very good. The FNM took a chance on Ingram, it was very good. They took a chance on Menace, all new people, it worked. I think the PLP need to take a chance on some dynamic leaders and put them forward.
Joe Beth, you got the final word.
I agree with what both of the gentlemen said, especially the part about crafting out a vision for the country. I think it's important, and that was what I wanted to get out when I spoke on the national address, that we need to move away now from the message of it's the people's time. Right now, it's all Bahamians' time, and we need to see what the plan is, what the focus is, what's the direction for economic growth, how will our lives change for the better under your administration. I'm here, I'm waiting. I'm not one that opposes just because opposing's sake. So I'm encouraged by them having some sort of structure in terms of where their throne of speech from the throne and national address is going, but I need more, a little bit more meat
and from
on the
within
bone.
your party.
Within the party, like I said, and I will continue to say, we are in a transition, and we will continue to transition for the next 12 months. We will see new persons rising up, which I have seen, and many wouldn't see it because they're not behind the scenes in the meetings. But there is a group of young millennials that are preparing themselves for 2022, and they are dynamic, they are ready, and they are definitely, from my point of view, what the country needs. And so whatever I can do to help them to come out and build on their aspirations, I will.
You know, it is an exciting time to be alive. It's an exciting time to be in the Bahamas, as I think, and I said it back, you know, in the holding room before that, I think these elections were a watershed moment in our history for many, many reasons. Politics will never, ever be the same in the Bahamas. Folks, I want to thank you for a fantastic discussion tonight. We have had certainly a lot of information, a lot to think about. We've had some great discussion and disagreement points, but you know, that's what we do. We bring you all together to talk. Fenton Nemore, JoBeth Davids, Cassie Stewart, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. We also hope that you have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to our guest, Senator JoBeth Davids, Cassie Stewart, Fenton Nemore, my producer, technical staff, and of course you, our audience, for watching. Join us for more On the Record next week, same time, same place. Once again, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you next week.